Welcome to our lesson on dividing with two-digit divisors. One thing I like to always start my lessons with is math vocabulary, so that when I say certain math terms, you'll know exactly what I mean when I call those names. When you're dividing whole numbers, there are three particular math terms that you need to remember. One of them is dividend, the next is divisor, and the next is quotient. You will see that I have two different models here of division problems. 40 divided by 8 is equal 5, and I have 24 divided by 4 is equal 6. I want you to know that the dividend is the number that is being divided. The divisor is the number you are dividing by, and the quotient is the answer to your division problem. You'll see in 40 divided by 8 equals 5 that 40 is your dividend, 8 is your divisor, and 5 is your quotient. And in the next model, you'll see that 24 is your dividend, 4 is your divisor, and 6 is your quotient. Things to remember when dividing. This will help you remember the steps. There are 5 steps that you need to remember when you're going through the division algorithm. Divide, multiply, subtract, bring down, and repeat the steps. A way for you to remember that is the first letter in divide is the first letter in daddy. The first letter in multiply is the first letter in mother. The first letter in subtract is also the first letter in sister. The first letter in bring down is the first letter in brother. And the first letter in repeat the steps is the first letter in rover. So if you can remember daddy, mommy, sister, brother, rover. Daddy, mother, sister, brother, rover. That should help you to remember to divide, multiply, subtract, bring down, and rover, meaning repeat the steps. Let's try a few. We'll start out with 684 divided by 12. You have a two-digit number here and you have a two-digit number there. So those are the two numbers that you'll start with your dividing. But before we begin, let's write those letters of the acronym. D for divide, M for multiply, S for subtract, B for bring down, and R for repeating the steps. 68 divided by 12 is 5. That is our D. That's the D portion. The very next letter is M, which means multiply. The 5 you just wrote down in your quotient, multiplying by your divisor of 12. 5 times 12 is 60. I'm going to erase that so you won't get confused. 5 times 12 once again is 60. We just multiplied. So the next letter is a S for subtract. We have 68 minus 60, and that would give us an 8. The next letter is B for bring down. We need to bring down the next number in your dividend, which is 4. Now instead of just having the 8, we have 84. The next letter is your R for repeating the steps. So with the R, I'm going to draw an arrow all the way back around to the beginning for D, which means we're going to start by dividing. 84 divided by 12, and that would give us 7. The next letter is M for multiply, multiplying the 7 you just wrote down times your divisor of 12. And 7 times 12 is 84. After your M, you'll see an S. The S means you need to subtract. After your S, when we subtract 84 minus 84, we get 0. And after the S, you'll see a B for bringing down. Well, if you look at your dividend underneath the division bar, you'll see no other numbers that we can work with. And if you look at the bottom of this division problem, you'll see a 0. Whenever you see a 0 down there, and you have nothing else you can bring down, you are done with that problem. So your answer, or another math term for your answer in division, your quotient is 57. Let's start with the next problem, which is 258 divided by 43. We'll start with both of our two-digit numbers in our dividend and in our divisor. Starting with, of course, the D for divide. 25 divided by 43, of course, is 0 because 25 is smaller than 43. The next letter you'll see is an M for multiply. That 0 you just wrote down, you're going to multiply it times your divisor of 43. 0 times 43 is 0 because we know that 0 times any number is 0. The next letter after your M is an S. The S stands for subtract. That means we need to subtract 25 minus 0, and that will give us 25. After your S, you'll see a B. The B stands for bringing down. We'll bring down our 8. Now we have 258. And after your B is your R for repeating the steps. Let's repeat the steps starting with D for division. 258 divided by 43. That's a tough one. We'll have to remember that 43, that multiplication is the opposite of division. So we'll take that divisor of 43 and we'll multiply it by, we will guess and check. So we'll guess a number. Let's guess I know and you know that 40 times 6 is 240. 40 times 7 is 280. So let's go with our 6 because 280 is greater than 258 and we're focusing on dividing by that 258. So 43 times 6. I see 3 times 6 is 18. Carry your 1. 6 times 4 is 24 plus that 1 makes 25. Wow, that actually equals 258 exactly. So we know that our 6 goes up here. Now that we have divided 258 divided by 43 and got our 6, the next letter after your D is your M. 6, the M stands for multiply, so we're going to multiply that 6 times the 43, which we have already done, and we know our answer is 258. The next letter after your M is the S for subtract. Now we need to subtract 258 minus 258, and that gives us a 0. Do you see anything else to bring down in your dividend? There's nothing else to bring down in your dividend, and you see 0 down at the bottom, so we know we are done. And our quotient in this problem is 6. Our quotient, once again, is the answer to that division problem. Now we're going to practice a few more. We have 2 problems here. 6,942 divided by 78. And once again, we're going to put our D, daddy, mama, sister, brother, rover. Just to help us remember our steps in dividing. Now, let's start with dividing. 69 divided by 78. We know that 69 is smaller than 78, so it will be a 0. The next letter is M for multiply. We need to multiply the 0 times the 78, and that will give us a 0. The next letter is an S for subtract. 69 minus 0 will give us a 69. And after your S, you see a B. The B means bring down. We'll bring down our 4. Now we have 694 divided by 78. And what did we just say? We just said the opposite of division is multiplication. So we're going to take our divisor of 78 and guess and check. We'll guess by rounding 70 instead of the 78, we'll say we know that 70 times 8 or 70 times 8 is 560. That's a little too low. What about 70 times 9? 7 times 9 is 63, so 70 times 9 would be 630, and 630 is real close to that 694 which we're dividing by. So let's say 78 times 9. 9 times 8 is 72. We'll write our 2 and carry our 7. 9 times 7 is 63. 63 plus that 7 gives us 70. 702, that's a little bit too big. It's larger than the 694, so we need to go one number lower than the 9. Go back to 78, and this time we're multiplying it instead of 9 times 8. Okay, we have 8 times 8 is 64. 8 times 7 is 56. 56 plus the 6 is 62. So the 624 is smaller than the 694, which means we can use that 8. We just multiplied it, which is our next step in the division process. So we know our answer is 8 times 78 is 624. And after your multiplication, the M, the S means we need to subtract. So we're going to subtract 694 minus 624. 4 minus 4 is 0, and 9 minus 2 is 7. After our S, we see a B, and the B stands for bringing down. We need to go to our dividend and bring down the next digit. So we're going to bring down a 2, which gives us a 702. 702 divided by 78. If you look over at what you just did, when we multiplied here the 78 times the 9, it gave us an answer of 702. So we know that 702 divided by 78 is equal to 9. And we'll write our 9 there. We have divided, and right after the D in divide, we have a M, so we need to multiply. 9 times 78, we've already done the math, so we know our answer is 702. After your M is a S, and the S stands for subtract. So now we have 702 minus 702. That gives us a 0. The next letter after your S is a B. And from looking at your dividend, there's nothing else to bring down. You have a 0 at the bottom, so we are done with that problem, which means our quotient is 89. I am going to erase all of that so that we can start on our next problem. We have our answer of 89, which is another word for what in division? Quotient. So our quotient is 89. Now we're trying to find a quotient for the next problem. And the next problem is 8,015 divided by 35. 8,015 divided by 35. Okay, so now we're going to divide 80 divided by 35. We have divided. Well, we have not divided. Remember we said with our division is the opposite of multiplication. So let's take our divisor of 35, and we're going to guess and check by multiplying it times a number. Let's try, we know that 35 times 1 is 35, so let's try 35 times 2 and see what we get. 5 times 2 is 10, carry your 1. 3 times 2 is 6, plus 1 is 7, that's 70. That's a little low, so let's try another one. meaning from the 2 we're going to go one number up. 35 times 3, let's see what we'll get. 5 times 3 is 15, carrier 1. 3 times 3 is 9, plus the 1 is 10. That's too high, so we'll have to stick with our 2. And after we divide, the next step, after your D is a M, we need to multiply, which we have already done. So we know that 35 times 2 is 70. What do you see after your M? You see an S. That S means we need to multiply. The S means we need to subtract. 0 minus 0 is 0. 8 minus 7 is 1. We have subtracted. And after your S, you see a B. The B stands for bringing down. So we'll bring down our 1 here. And we have 101. The R after your B stands for repeat. Repeat the steps. That means go right all the way back to the D in divide. So now we have 101 divided by 35. And because we have already multiplied 35 times 2 and 35 times 3, we know that 3 is too high, so we'll have to go with 2 once again. And we know that 2 times 35 is 70. After we multiply the M, you'll see an S. The S means you need to subtract. 1 minus 0 is 1. And 10 minus 7 is 3. After your subtraction, the S, you'll see a B, and the B means bring down. So now we have 315. We need to go with a large number now, and I'm going to start with let's start with 9. So we'll take the 35, our divisor of 35, and we're going to multiply it times 9 and see if we'll get a number that's close to 315. 35 times 9. 9 times 5 is 45. Carrier 4. 9 times 3 is 27. 27 plus 4 gives you 31. That's 315, and that's exactly what we're dividing by. So we know up here in our quotient, the last digit will be a 9. After we divide, then we multiply. Because after your D is a M, 9 times 35, we've already done the math, is 315. And after your M, you'll see a S for subtract. If we subtract 315 minus 315, we have 0. After your S is a B for bringing down, there's nothing else to bring down. You have a 0 at the bottom, so you know that we're done with this problem. We have an answer of 229, which is also, in math vocabulary terms, a quotient of 229. And that concludes our lesson on dividing with 2-digit divisors.